What I'm going to do is use regex search to search for my layer metrics. So I'll search for something like layer / d plus for digit to catch all the layers, and then gradient to see gradient norm for each layer, right? So this is layer 0, this is layer 1, and as we scroll, we get to other layers. Now, let's say a few days have gone by since we started the long training run, and we now noticed that after a while, it starts to develop some anomalies. We can also see that the eval loss is not looking so good. It's actually diverging instead of converging. So let's look into that now, shall we? Let's see how Neptune helps me debug this training and solve it quickly. Now, I know the reality of our job is that you often have to pivot from training, development, to debugging, to rerunning the same training, maybe going back to your code from like weeks and months ago. So hopefully this will give you a glimpse into how that can be done slightly easier, slightly faster with fewer context switches. First of all, you can see that in Neptune charts, you can see anomalies from any distance. The charts are designed in a way that always showcases the anomalies clearly. So even though we're about 600,000 steps into the training, we see that those spikes, those anomalies are visible from all the way out, even though they're a single data point that was logged that was an anomaly. So this is pretty cool, right? Let's now open this training run to see what actually could be the root cause of the issue. So here again, I can see all my metrics. I can look for things like eval metrics to see all 4 eval metrics that I'm logging at once. But what I actually want to do is check what could be the cause of that, right? So I'm going to look at the loss and also gradient norm, just to see it side by side. Let me actually do train loss and gradient norm. So you can see that actually it's what I expected to be the culprit here. So the train loss starts developing these spikes around the same time as we start seeing gradient explosions. It's roughly at step 550 maybe, 550,000. So I now kind of know roughly what's going on, but if I want to go deeper, I could, for instance, look at the gradient norms on each layer because I'm logging that. So let's say I want to investigate which layer is actually the problem on those few samples that cause these explosions. So what I'm going to do is use regex search to search for my layer metrics. So I'll search for something like layer / d plus for digit to catch all the layers, and then gradient to see gradient norm for each layer, right? So this is layer 0, this is layer 1, and as we scroll, we get to other layers. So going from the first layer, I don't see any anomalies here. So they only start to develop here maybe a little bit, although not too much. There's some anomalies here and there, but it's what I would expect from a normal training. Let me see the end of the network though. Here's where we actually see something going really wrong, right? Like these final layers, they get these gradient spikes from layer 25 roughly. They're much more pronounced. They go all the way to up to 1, which is 5 times more than what they probably should be. So let's look into those. I'm going to actually select a few charts. Let's say layer 31 gradient norm, and I'm also going to do layer 41. Let's see what other metrics I want to see in my debugging report. So I selected the gradient norm. I probably also want to just look at the weight norm to compare the gradient with that. And what I can do now is I can actually duplicate these into my existing report, the one that I was showing you at the beginning, where I use the report that I use to monitor long runs. And I can save this as a new draft. So now let's go into that report. This is the report. I need to switch to editing mode to actually see my new metrics. And there you go. In addition to the ones that I had before, I also get these 2 gradient norm and weight norm for the last layer of my network. What I'll do to edit this report a little bit and to help me follow through my debugging process and document it for my colleagues is I'll create a new section called debugging. I'll save it and I'll move those widgets into the new section to keep it nice and clean. Now, I don't actually want to look at the layer norm itself, so I'll edit this chart, and instead of keeping this layer norm here, I am going to add another expression using the custom expression widget that will calculate relative gradient magnitude to weight norm ratio. So I'm going to do layer slash 31 gradient norm divided by layer slash 31 slash weight norm. And I'm going to call this relative gradient norm layer 31. Right, so I'm going to remove also the weight norm expression and just keep this one in here and save the widget. So now what you can see is that we have something that allows me to see if the gradient is kind of like unproportional to the weights of this layer, and it is, right? Like I still get these spikes. They're small, but not really that small. They're much more pronounced than everything else around them. So given that this is just a few layers at the end, what I'm actually going to do is try to resume this training from a checkpoint somewhere around 500K before it started going badly, and fork it to run in parallel to this main training. I don't need to stop this main training just yet. Maybe it will recover. Maybe these are just few weird samples, and the loss will kind of like resume convergence after a while, but I'm not so sure. So I want to run both in parallel and see how it goes.